Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I'm from the internet. Today we are going to be talking about our old friend Don. That's right, Donald Trump. Perhaps you've heard of him. I was led to believe that back in the day, he was all the rage. However, it would seem he's rather unpopular now. I rarely see anything about him in the news. However, in light of a recent revelation, I have decided to revisit an old retired segment of ours from also back in the day called What the Hell is Going On with Donald Trump? Back when we were doing that weekly segment, I took the blind leap of faith and donated $1 to the Donald Trump campaign just to see what would happen. Feel free to go back and look through the archive. There's a number of videos about the ludicrous number of emails that I got on a daily basis from the Trump campaign. However, at the end of the day, I still managed to only donate $1, and I got a ton of free content and entertainment. But it would seem that a lot of other people who donated a lot more money than I did had even more money taken from them afterwards by the very same campaign that they were generously donating to in the first place. Want to see what that looked like? Well, here we go. How Trump steered supporters into unwitting donations. Online donors were guided into weekly reoccurring contributions. Demands for refunds spiked. Complaints to the banks and credit card companies soared, but the money helped keep Donald Trump's struggling campaign afloat. What? Oh, hold on. I was led to believe that Donald Trump was an extremely successful billionaire who was raising hundreds of millions of dollars, tremendous dollars, so many tremendous dollars that people were coming up to him and they were like, Mr. President, I've never seen so many tremendous dollars before in my life.
Perhaps you all heard that story.
But it would seem he was not doing nearly as well as he led his followers to believe. What? Stacey Blatt was in hospice care last September listening to Rush Limbaugh's dire warnings about how badly Donald J. Trump's campaign needed money when he went online and chipped in everything he could, $500. It was a big sum of money for a 63-year-old battling cancer and living in Kansas City on less than $1,000 a month. But that single contribution, federal records show it was his first ever, quickly multiplied. Another $500 was withdrawn the next day, then $500 the next week, and every week through mid-October without his knowledge, until Mr. Blatt's bank account had been depleted and frozen. When his utility and rent payments bounced, he called on his brother Russell for help. Now, before we get any further into this, I want to tell you, I had a slight internal chuckle when I read the first sentence, and then I realized that's not cool. This is not going to be about bashing people for donating to Donald Trump or hearing the call of Rush Limbaugh. These are people I do not agree with. Many of them are quite literally despicable human beings who have no redeeming value at all. However, I am not going to shit on people for feeling an emotion, getting caught up in the moment, or God forbid, supporting something or somebody they believe in. Because everybody on both sides of the political divide does this. I don't want this to become a partisan issue, and I sure as shit don't want to look down in the comments tomorrow and see people writing, well, they deserved it because they voted for Donald Trump. No, nobody deserves to get taken advantage of. Are we all on the same page here? Good. Now I'll continue. What the Blatts soon discovered was $3,000 in withdrawals by the Trump campaign in less than 30 days. They called their bank and said they thought they were victims of a fraud. Quote, it felt like it was a scam.
Because it was.
But what the Blatts believed was duplicity was actually an intentional scheme to boost revenues by the Trump campaign and the for-profit company that processed its online donations, WinRed. Facing a cash crunch and getting badly outspent by the Democrats, the campaign had begun last September to set up recurring donations by default for online donors for every week until the election. Well, of course they did that. If you have any questions, please see the rant from about 30 seconds ago when I explained to you how despicable they all are. Contributors had to wade through a fine print disclaimer and manually uncheck a box to opt out. As the election neared, the Trump team made that disclaimer increasingly opaque, an investigation by the New York Times showed. It introduced a second pre-checked box, known internally as a money bomb, that doubled the person's contribution. Eventually, its solicitations featured lines of text in bold and capital letters that overwhelmed the opt-out language. Because you can't opt out of something if you don't know that you've opted in and you can't see the warning.
Grifters gonna grift.
The tactic ensnared scores of unsuspecting Trump loyalists, retirees, military veterans, nurses, and even experienced political operatives. Soon, banks and credit card companies were inundated with fraud complaints from the president's own supporters about donations they had not intended to make, sometimes for thousands of dollars. Bandits! Said Victor Amelino, a 78-year-old Californian who made a $990 donation to Mr. Trump in early September via WinRed. It reoccurred 7 more times, adding up to almost $8,000. Quote, "I'm retired. I can't afford to pay all that damn money." Donald Trump and his campaign sure as shit don't care. The only thing they care about is that you had $8,000 and now, well, they have your $8,000. You solely exist to subsist Donald Trump and his lifestyle. This is how the Trump campaign has always viewed the general public, and especially people who support the former president. The sheer magnitude of the money involved is staggering for politics. In the final 2.5 months of 2020, the Trump campaign, the Republican National Committee, and their shared accounts issued more than 530,000 refunds worth $64.3 million to online donors. All campaigns make refunds for various reasons, including to people who give more than the legal limit. But the sum the Trump operation refunded dwarfed that of Joe Biden's campaign and his equivalent Democratic committees, which made 37,000 online refunds, totaling $5.6 million in that time. Well, now I'm starting to understand why Donald Trump put in a new tax plan that didn't start escalating after year 5. He wanted to make sure that all his people had a ton of money available so he could just suck it out of their bank account. The reoccurring donations swelled Mr. Trump's treasury in September and October, just as his finances were deteriorating. He was then able to use tens of millions of dollars he raised after the election under the guise of fighting his unfounded fraud claims to help cover the refunds he owed. In effect, the money that Mr. Trump eventually had to refund amounted to an interest-free loan from unwitting supporters at the most important juncture of the 2020 race.
Grifters gonna grift.
The record, this is what it looked like if you gave money to Donald Trump. Like, I had to give him his own folder in my email box because, damn, brother was 10 deep up in there and could not take the hint. He's all like, you sure you don't want to come hang out? You sure you don't want to come hang out? Come on. You sure you don't want to come hang out? Why don't you just hang out with me once? Come on, it'll be cool. Come on, let's go out again. It'll be totally cool. But I digress. Marketers have long used ruses like pre-check boxes to steer American consumers into unwanted purchases, like magazine subscriptions. But consumer advocates said deploying the practice on voters in the heat of a presidential campaign at such volume with withdrawals every week had much more serious ramifications. Quote, "It's unfair, it's unethical, and it's inappropriate." Wow, you really just described Donald Trump like nail right on the head. Oh, and for the record, if you go back and you reread that top paragraph up there, marketers have long used ruses like pre-check boxes to steer American consumers into unwanted purchases. Yeah, because in most normal countries, they have laws against allowing people and corporations to just scam the shit out of everybody. But we don't do that here.
Grifters gonna grift.
And if you make the grift illegal, well then what are the grifters gonna do? Political strategists, digital operatives, and campaign finance experts say they could not recall ever seeing refunds at such a scale. Mr. Trump, the RNC, and their shared accounts refunded far more money to online donors in the last election cycle than every federal Democratic candidate and committee in the country combined. Because of course they did. Donald Trump isn't just the heavyweight champion of Big Macs and Filet-O-Fishes, he's also the heavyweight champion of grifting.
Gonna grift.
Overall, the Trump operation refunded 10.7% of the money it raised on WinRed in 2020. The Biden operation's refund rate on ActBlue, which is the parallel Democratic online donation processing platform, was 2.2%. Federal records show. So, since Donald Trump decided to leave the band and, go launch a solo career, he still has his own email grift going on, and it still looks exactly the same. And all of the politicians that you would think would go out of their way to get on the FEC and squeeze Donald Trump and maybe try to get some legal action out of him, most of those lawmakers looked at how much money Donald Trump made, and now they all have the same exact double checkbox system on their emails. People like Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell and, the representatives that you elected to make sure that you live in a world with, fairness and democracy and justice. Unfortunately, a world where capitalism reigns supreme and the money keeps flowing, all of those things are always going to be secondary considerations to the people in power. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet and I am out. Peace.